Hello, my name is John. I'm a recovered alcoholic and drug addict. Just wanted to discuss what it means or what I feel that God spoke to me about the desperation of a drowning man. I hear that in some of the 12-step groups that I'm in, and people are like, oh, I'm just so grateful for the gift of desperation. And you might have heard that. And it's like, what is the actual gift of desperation? Like, what does that look like? And what does it mean to have the desperation of a drowning man? As I flushed out this conversation yesterday with a friend of mine, I was reminded of drowning. I don't know if anybody has that experience of a near fatality of drowning, but when I was young, I thought it was a good idea to I was a very adventurous kid. I was the kind of kid that you would not want to leave alone in a gift shop of any magnitude. I like to touch things and experiment with things. So I had those arm floaties, and I was in a pool, and I thought it would be cool to put the arm floaties on my legs. So I got them in my legs and I put them all the way up, and instantly I flipped over because I was in the water, and I flipped over, and I was being held up by my legs, and I couldn't keep my head above water, but I could see all the people. And finally, somebody came and saved me. But it was one of those traumatic moments in my life that I thought I was a goner, like I was going to drown. When I lived in Asia, in Indonesia, we had a lot of beach stuff, beach area, ocean, and we would go on vacation by the ocean once a year or so. And I remember a traumatic experience of actually seeing a person being pulled up on the shore, and he was dead. He had drowned, and so they did mouth to mouth and eventually revived him. And I was reminded of a story about with my uncle in it, and they a lot of them were missionaries, and I think they had been in Saint Lucia. And when my uncles get together, there was five of them, and they get together, and it's like watching a sitcom, and they all tell stories, and they're yelling and loud. And an hour into these stories, your stomach and your face hurts because you're laughing so hard. And so they have all these crazy adventures. And so one of my uncles, he got in a big accident when he was in his 20s working for Ontario Hydro, and got electrocuted out of one of those hydro pole boxes. And I think he was going to die. And then he got a little bit better in the hospital. And then he was going to be a paraplegic for the rest of his life. And within 6 months or to a year, he was walking. He always walked with a bit of a limp, and sometimes he used a cane. And but he made it through, and he did a lot of mission work. And so once he was swimming in the ocean, and he got carried out by an undertow. And I've been in an undertow before. They're very scary because water has much more power than any human could ever have. And he gets taken out, and he can barely see the beach anymore. He was just taken out, and over the course of hours, he just floated and floated and floated. And at some point, his toe started to touch something, and it was sand, and he hit a sandbar in the middle of so far away in the ocean hours later that no one could see him. And he was finally rescued. And so that is what it means to be a drowning man, but the desperation of it, because there's no intervention that can happen. And so I believe that I was in that position in my own addiction, and whatever that looks like in your life, you might have got to the point of just feel like you're drowning in emotions, drowning in expectations, drowning in the letdown of life and of kids and of all of the things that pile and weigh on us. And in my addiction, I found that I was just drowning with disappointment. And I got to a certain point in my life where my addiction was growing and growing. The control that I had over it, or the delusion of any control that I had, I was actually losing all control. and it controlled me, and it was compulsive. It was something that had serious consequences that I couldn't stop. And it was very confusing of like, well, why is this causing so many problems? Well, I get why, but how do I stop it? And why can't I stop it if it's causing so much problems? And I got to the point where in August of 2004, I do believe, I missed my son's birthday and my wife's birthday due to benders that I was going on. And that caused a series of events to basically, I came home one weekend and I was home alone. I had lost my job in the union that I was in, and or I had been put on the bench at any level. And then my beloveds had left and vacated the building, and I was home alone and full of fear. I felt like I was drowning. I was in some state of psychosis and paranoia all the time. And I couldn't even be at home. So I was on the streets of Ottawa. And I made a decision. I made an agreement that life wasn't worth hurting all of the people that I'm in relationships with. And I said to myself, it's better that I'm not here. I didn't want to hurt myself. I didn't want to kill myself, but I didn't want to wake up. And so I tried for months upon months to not wake up. And I wasn't eating. I was in psychosis. I was on the streets of Ottawa, in and out of motels and horrible situations. And I kept waking up, and I kept waking up to the same nightmare over and over and over. And I just wanted it to end. And I literally felt like I was drowning, but I couldn't die, and I can't live. And I need to be rescued. And that's the desperation and the hopelessness that I believe that anybody floating in the water that can't see any boats or ocean liners or shore or anything, that's the desperation of only divine intervention could save me right now. When I had the floaties on, yeah, the only people that could save me were the my parents. And so that's my experience of drowning. And I understand that we don't need substances to drown. That was actually my relief at some level until it became detrimental to my own sanity and my own life. But the word drowning is being submersed and acting in the action of breathing, inhalation. So being submersed and inhaling. So it doesn't matter if it's alcohol or drugs or just life in general, whatever's you're submersed in and you're breathing it in, that is really what you're drowning in. And then the desperation, it's a state of despair, a state of emergency resulting in extreme behavior. And so I thought that was really interesting key to really understand why that desperation is such a gift. Because if we're going to end in eternal glory with God or eternal damnation of the results of me choosing how to get saved in my drowning, then I need extreme behavior. I need something extreme to cause me to go into a different direction. So that's kind of what I wanted to look at is just with the disease of addiction. In step one, we talk about this powerlessness and this mental obsession. So this powerlessness has two parts to it where I I think about it, or I am impulsively doing the thing that I don't want to do, even when I'm not doing it. So it's the farthest thing from my mind. I won't drink today. I won't drink this week. I'll save it for the weekend. And all of a sudden, I'm drinking or I'm using or whatever it is. I'm doing the behavior that I said that I didn't want to do. And then when I do it, I can't stop doing it. I can't necessarily control it. I believe that I am, but I'm delusional in that. And I just say that I changed my mind, or that I didn't really mean only that little bit of it, or I just excuse the behavior of my consumption. And so that's like the powerlessness that I have over these things that I consume in my body. That for me, it was drugs and alcohol and relationships. And then step one actually talks about this unmanageability, and that is what I've always had my whole entire life, was the unmanageability of being separated from God ever since I was born. Not that God isn't in all and is all and the air that I breathe, I understand that, but I'm born outside of the temple, so to say. And that's what I believe recovery is recovering the temple of God, or the hand-in-hand relationship that Adam and Eve had. The consequences is from their action is that we're all born on the outside of it. And so I really get to understand that there is no cure for addiction, but then what is the cure that addiction was giving me? Well, that's the unmanageability of my spiritual condition. So I can look at my real condition of what these substances, and you might have relationships or food or shopping or your phone or pornography or whatever it is. Mine was drugs and alcohol. Whatever it gave me a sense of relief from, that's really what my problem is. I couldn't describe it at the time, but I was doing it for this relief from my internal condition. And so the desperation is tied to an extreme behavior. And so I just wanted to bring in a story out of the big book. And it was a American businessman. He was a stockbroker, and he was being visited by probably the leading psychologist of the time, and most treatment centers still use his concepts and theories. His name is Dr. Carl Jung, and this man, Roland Hazard, was meeting with him, and they were discussing all of their triggers and their reasoning behind drinking and the choices that he's making, and trying to intercept cognitively to just stop doing these things, because if you know enough about yourself, then you'll just not put yourself into danger. You won't be at harms. You'll be out of reach of the thing that's trying to kill you. And they have zero success, and this leading psychologist has had zero success, and he's able to voice that. And so they get to the point where there's this hopelessness of, like, the leading doctor of the world has no hope for this man. And the doctor said, "You have a mind of a chronic alcoholic. I've never seen one single case recover where the state of mind existed to the extent that it does in you." Our friend felt as though the gates of hell had closed upon him. He said to the doctor, "There's no exception?" The doctor replied, "Yes, there is exceptions to such cases as yours have been occurring since early times. Here and there, once in a while, alcoholics have had what we call vital spiritual experiences. To me, these occurrences are a phenomena. They appear to be in the nature of huge emotional displacements and rearrangements, ideas, emotions, and attitudes which were once the guiding forces of the lives of these men are suddenly cast to one side, and a complete new set of concepts and motives begin to dominate them. In fact, I've been trying to do that with you. I've been trying to implement this stuff. I've been trying to wave the magic wand over you. Um, but it hasn't worked. So later on in the page, coming to the end of that chapter, that there is a solution on page 29. Further on, clear-cut directions are given showing how we have recovered. These are followed by 43 personal experiences, each individual in the personal stories described in his own language. And from this point of view, the way he established his relationship with God. And so this is how we got to such extreme measures. We, in our turn, sought the same escape with all desperation of a drowning man. I think a lot of drowning people fight the lifeguard. or in my experience from what I've heard is you just start grabbing onto anything or anyone to help save your life. What seemed at first a flimsy reed had been proven to be a loving and powerful hand of God. A new life has been given to us, or if you prefer, a design for living that really works. So the desperation of a drowning man or woman is the extreme behavior of a whole new way of living, of having a spiritual experience where all of your principles, ideas, values, your motivations are cast to one side and a whole new set appear, and you lose your thoughts about drugs and alcohol or whatever it is, and you go towards a new way of living. And so I just wanted to read another excerpt out of this little book. It's called The 12 and 12. It was written after the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And they talk about this step one problem of the hopelessness of, like, your sponsor kind of onboards you, and he qualifies you of, like, does this happen when you drink? Does this happen? Are you drinking because of this? And when you try to stop, can you stop effectively every time? And so when you start drinking, you can't stop drinking. And when you stop drinking, you keep starting drinking. That's the hopelessness of it, but it's never going to be the solution. So I need a whole new solution. And so it says, in AA's pioneering time, none but the most desperate cases could swallow and digest this unpalatable truth. Even the last gaspers often had difficulty in realizing the hopelessness they actually were. But a few did, and when they laid hold of AA principles with all the fever which a drowning man seizes a life preserver, they most inevitably get well. That is why the first edition of the book Alcoholics Anonymous was published when our members was small, dealt with low bottom cases only. Many less desperate alcoholics tried AA but did not succeed because they could not make the admission of hopelessness. So basically, the gift of desperation means I'm holding on to the life preserver and there's no other option but to be saved before I die. I can't even drink the water because it's salt water. So as I was unpacking this with my friend the other day, it's like, what does it look like when I am floating in the water? What do I start doing and stop doing? And the principles that they're holding on to is, yes, the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, the way of death to self, and to enter into a relationship with God, actually getting to be the temple of God, clearing out the temple with his power to have his love and life and joy and peace inside of me. I get to be the living temple of God. I get to join him on the inside. And so what does it mean to be out in the ocean? Well, as we were unpacking it, it means get out in the ocean and hold on to a life preserver. Like, stop doing what you're doing and go drown. Like, go into the water, be on rescue, and hold on for dear life. What am I holding on to? What is the preserver? Well, I believe in these principles that we are being walked into to the new way of living. Is there's four big ones. And number one, I believe the principle that we can hold on to is of being of maximum service to God and to those about us. So on my preserver life, every morning, I'm going to seek prayer meditation. How can I be of maximum service today to God and to others? And then love and tolerance is our code. It actually says code. Like, we are being recoded, rewritten. Like, all of this stuff needs to be cast out. And we're holding on to the preserver and the principle of love and tolerance to all those around us. We get to practice that. We also, it talks about the principle of living the book, living the word of God, living the temple of God. Like, I actually get to live as the priest to the people around me. I get to be the go-between between God and those around me. And that really turns into the mission of passing on the good news, of giving my life purpose and meaning outside of my home life, my kids, my work, my job, my career, all of that stuff. And then a big principle that I believe that we really have to hold on to of the desperation of that life preserver is giving rather than receiving becomes our guiding principle. And I thought about that for a minute and I was like, before I ever got sober, my whole life was about taking. I tried to receive, I tried to take. The only way that I would give would be to give you attention because I wanted something from you. I would I wouldn't even give people the time of day. I wouldn't give anybody an apology. I would use fake words just because I wanted to get something from you. I caused so many problems and all I did was take my whole entire life. So this preserver that I'm holding on to is about giving without an expectation of getting back. And I believe as I start to hold on to those principles and I start to like incorporate them into my thinking and into my life and into my prayer and meditation life, then at some point God's boat is going to come on the scene and rescue me and take me to a beautiful island, a whole different life. But these are the guiding principles that I have to hold on to like a drowning man. And so, if this is new to you, this concept is new to you, we have a little bit of a process. If you wanted to embark in, I would love to offer you to take the LifeLab diagnostics, and that's really just checking under the hood of your heart. It's really doesn't talk about addiction or religion. It just gives you the ability to answer questions. There's 4 10-minute videos with questions at the end, and it just gets your heart talking. And then if you wanted to move into the solution that I'm talking about, going from drowning in the ocean to being rescued and getting onto the shore of faith, the stability of a relationship with God, and to grow that, then we have LifeLab Express. And so it's not even done. It's up on the internet and we're at session 5 of 6. And next week we'll have 6. So we'll have that all up. And it is the express way to actually implement the principles that we're talking about to actually lead somebody onto the shore of faith and to begin a relationship with God that will solve all of your problems. And then we also have the full Life Lab. That's a 20-session workshop. So I just want to invite you into your own healing process. I would love for you to all understand and accept the hopelessness of your situation. And then have the extreme measures of a drowning person holding on to these principles that are actually going to start changing your thinking, and you'll be in position to be rescued. But if you're still fighting, there's some of us that don't even think we're drowning. There's some of us that are being rescued right now, and that hand's coming down, and we're just grabbing on, trying to fight the lifeguard. Or some of us see the ship coming. And so I'm looking forward to all of your shares and relating of how you've drowned or what the gift of desperation actually looks like in your life. Vicky has like literally the best story. As I was talking to her about this, she actually shared like a podcast that she listened to. I was like, oh, I don't even know why you're not doing the talk, but it's a beautiful story. If I can get that podcast, I'll post it as well, because the story goes into a girl that got pulled out by a riptide in a little boat and was lost at sea for 3 days. And the only hope that she had was being rescued. And she actually heard the voice of God on 3 different occasions out loud. And after 3 days, she was finally saved. And out of that experience, she had the desperation to have a real relationship with God. And so that's what's available to all of us is going from the outside of the drowning to the inside of the temple.